Hey there. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining. I am so grateful that you're here. Welcome to the Starseed Ministry. It is Monday, August 29th, 2022. What happened to August? It was like we walked through the Lion's Gate and here we are. We are pretty much finishing up this month, this calendar month. We are already in our next lunar cycle. We had a new moon in Virgo over the weekend. Mars is so much in the mix of all of this. Wow. We have so much to go over today, so I hope you're doing well, taking good care of yourselves. Welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for being here. It's Monday. We do the Starseed Ministry. I share with you a reading for the week. We kind of go over the astrology, kind of a review of what we went over on Friday in the astrology report, and just kind of get ourselves settled into what this week may have in store for us, and a chance to really commune with each other. And so much of today's energy, and so much of this week's energy, and so much of this life's energy, but especially right now, is directing the focus of what we are this new level of consciousness that is definitely opening in many, if not all of us right now on some level. It's imperative that we start to give the focus towards what we have to offer to this collective experience. I mean, the equinox is on its way. Right, September 22nd, 23rd, where the sun enters 0 degrees Libra. It's going to be conjunct Mercury. So Mercury's already passed over 0 degrees Libra. It's going to station retrograde during this lunar cycle, Virgo, this Virgo new moon, this Pisces full moon that we're going to have. And wow, boy, there's just so much. Trying to put it into a soundbite is a little difficult. So we're going to go over the space weather, definitely, because it's almost at the point now where it's hard to just keep up with what is happening. The sun is pretty consistently now flaring at a much higher intensity than it had been, which is something that we've talked about here. Other people have forecasted it that really focus on this very closely in terms of the solar cycle. Solar cycle 25, solar maximum, like we are now hitting the midpoint of the entire 11-year cycle, which means that we are really starting to hit the maximum of the maximum solar cycle. So nothing yet that has surpassed into X-Flare's territory, which is pretty much the highest energy that we are measuring at this point. So not yet, but getting pretty close and pretty consistent. So we're going to look at the space weather. It was a rough weekend for many people, like truly very challenging and very tragic in some ways for people that I know. Some really difficult things having to be addressed, people's mortality, how quickly things can change, right? Losing potentially a child or a very close family member. So it's that level of the spectrum all the way to just the inner work that we are all being tasked with and have been for a very long time. So the sun is conjunct Alpha Draconis today, so it is definitely a Draco Starseed activation. And boy, am I feeling it. And I've had a pretty consistent block of readings in the last month or so that have had strong Draco Starseed markings in it. And so just the fact that the sun is conjunct Draco right now, in a longitudinal conjunction, right? I haven't even looked at where maybe it is in latitude. It might be very close to each other, but definitely in its longitudinal connection, which is what we're really measuring in Western and tropical astrology, is much more of the longitudinal alignment along the dome of our vision, right? Imagine this toroidal field that's around me is really a 360-degree dome around us, in which we make all kinds of geometric angles between the planets and the stars and us, and our conscious awareness is at the center of it. So this is how astrology can be more like a fourth dimensional map, as opposed to something that is more like a religion, which many people look at astrology in that way, but if you think about it more of as a fourth dimensional map with coordinates for your soul's blueprint, it really seems to work a lot better. So the reading today is really reflective of a lot of fire. There's a lot of fire right now. Mars is just having a blast, and that might not be a very good thing. And really what's come through based on my own experiences and journeys, we had our Starseed Fellowship Zoom call on Friday, and just conversation on our Telegram chat throughout the weekend. And people definitely are not sleeping. Either they're incredibly energized and don't need to sleep. A lot of just restlessness in the sleep. I'm just like waking up every night at the same time, just drenched in sweat. If you were a part of the stream or saw the broadcast from Friday, the Schumann went out on Thursday into Friday morning, and 3 people in the chat, including myself, that are East Coast-ish, or at least in the United States, overnight when the Schumann was blacked out. And that could be equipment failure. Who knows what it was from? There was no measurement for a real big chunk of time. But 3 of us, for sure, in this stream were like, oh yeah, I got woken up by a tone in my ear in the middle of the night. So after that, there was a lot of flaring from the sun, and then the weekend was just, there's so much anger still. And I say this personally, in like having to face the anger that I am still holding on to, that I don't want to really let go of. And boy, if that's not a Chiron and Aries energy, I don't know what is. So it's perfect that we're talking about this in the Catalyst Classroom this month. So this week we're going to be looking at Chiron and the signs and the houses, and I'm going to go through all of that information, and that's going to be posted for monthly subscribers to the classroom. And we're going to see some of that Virgo theme. It's really about getting down to the brass tacks of healing, right? It is the aspects of self-care that are not always the most comfortable or what we actually want to be doing in our ego. And with Mars involved, I mean, it's so locked in the polarized perspective that without the balance of this healing opportunity with Virgo, I think that, find yourself getting pulled into a false dichotomy rather than the real energy, which is the integration of the polarity, right? So Mars in Gemini, it's going to be here for a hot minute, right? It's going to station retrograde at the very end of Gemini and go back in, it's not going to leave Gemini, but it's going to be in the sign of Gemini for quite a while. And so not only are we going to get to kind of the end here of the sign of Gemini with Mars, then we're going to go back and do like this internalized review. It's going to be interesting. I can already tell, like, there's just so much anger, and there's so much potential to take that energy and channel it appropriately. And when I say appropriately, I mean in terms of our own spiritual evolution, triggering our own transmutation, coming to experience oneness truly by finding the place where you can take these 2 diametrically opposed positions in yourself, in your life, your relationships, and truly in society, and find the catalyzing energy that actually creates something new, right? That's really their only way out, is through. And everybody's experiencing it differently. I mean, for me, there's a lot of anger that I've been holding, and it's like, it has a physical impact on the body. And whatever residual third density experience that we're still holding on to, or still just around, it really is going whether we like it or not. But how that happens is really up to our own free choice and our intention and our conscious choice, basically. And if there was ever an opportunity to use the energy of the South Node in Scorpio, it's in this conscious acceptance of relationship, for better or for worse, right? To really commit yourself to being reconditioned and purified by the challenge of your own inner polarity. So Virgo, that's what Virgo is all about. And this new moon on Saturday morning, it hasn't been easy, because it's really just like, oh, this is reality here. What are we going to do about it? So the anger and the energy of anger, and where it can be channeled. And truly, it's the masculine. It really needs healing right now. And so within all of us, we have our masculine pole within all of us. And so wherever that is expressing itself and being experienced in your own life and how you're interacting with that on a larger scale, in the macro, this is a big important lesson right now, and it's not going to be easy. It's not been easy, and it's been very uncomfortable, to say the least, very painful, to put it simply, and in all kinds of different ways. And it's truly the masculine, right? Because the masculine is that part of ourselves that acts on instinct and self-preservation. It acts on a potency and a desire to be, which is the spark of divinity and creator within all of us, right? It is the spark of life within the seed. And it is what triggers all of the experiences that we have in life to perpetuate itself. And that's an important part of us. That's our ego. That's our inner child that is represented by Mars. And with the retrograde of Chiron, the retrograde of Jupiter, both in the sign of Aries, the fact that there's going to be, lots of opposition to Jupiter as we move into Libra, as it represents like the squeezing of the billows. It's really important to keep this imagery, however you want to conceptualize it. To me, it's just the billows makes the most sense in terms of squeezing all the air out. It seems like it's contracting, but what is it doing? It's bringing these two poles together that are then going to go, pew, right? That's what happens inside the sun, right? Is hydrogen atoms are supposedly coming together in nuclear fusion and releasing energy as they are creating helium, right? Helium has 2 protons, 2 neutrons, 2 electrons. Hydrogen has 1, 1, and 1, right? In its neutral state, if it's not an ion. So that's a little bit of chemistry out there. But the idea here is that it's coming together. And maybe that scares people. And people will do whatever they can to maintain that crowbar separation of duality in our minds. And Mars and Gemini, if that's where your energy of self-preservation is going, then that's where it's going to go. But I assure you, it's going to show up in a way that can't be resolved by that forever, right? And this is the whole idea of like, we're all going to this place together, and how we experience it and what our soul gets out of it, and what we all get out of it has a lot to do with our conscious acceptance of that relationship is where the change and the creation really happens. And it's supremely uncomfortable. And the sun is simultaneously assisting us, but it's not very comfortable, right? When it's all Leo energy, it's all great because it's just this combust expression of like exhilaration and the Kundalini opening, right? It is ecstatic. Or grief, right? Or anger. But when it comes into form, it's a different ballgame entirely, isn't it? This is where the rubber meets the road. And when we talk about Draco, Starseeds, you know who you are. If you've had a reading from me or if anyone else, and you've confirmed this for yourself, and this is part of what you're working on in terms of your karma, I mean, this is where it went sideways, right? This Virgo energy committed itself to controlling this experience for self-preservation, and not in the surrendering of this energy to the divine plan, to the sacred fractal, to the source, right? To the relationship. And that's what Libra is all about, right? It is about applying everything we've learned about ourselves and applying that knowledge to establish equilibrium in our relationship to and that's the universe, right? I mean, that's the best case scenario. So as a lot of this Libra energy starts to come online, especially when we get to the equinox, but Mercury's already here. It's a lot of opposition. And the moon right now coming into Libra, okay? The moon is also going to be in opposition to all this Aries energy, right? And it's going to still have a relationship to Mars. And actually, there's going to be a trine with the moon in Libra to Mars. So we'll get all into that with the astrology. I just wanted to make sure I hit these bullet points of, the general theme here that's coming through is the masculine it's almost desperate, right? Like it cannot continue on with the damage it's caused in being out of alignment when it has not stepped up and protected. Like I can say for me, that is where a lot of my anger is coming from, is more in the masculine that wasn't there, right? And that I feel like has a lot of implications to how Chiron functions, of course, being the wounded healer. When you find a sense of, you can either be a victim or you can find yourself being a savior, because ultimately there was this deep wound of not, there was not this masculine energy that was, protecting you and providing and being a structure. And that's something the masculine is just going to have to deal with. And it has been infiltrated and used and abused so badly with what is now turned into, more of the left side of the political aisle. It's not that it was ever a negative thing to address patriarchy, and it needs to be, right? But it's a reprieve. Actually, that's a line from Ani DeFranco in an album called Reprieve, that feminism ain't about equality, it's about reprieve. And what's a reprieve? It's a respite. It's a hiding place. It's to just gather yourself and get away from what has been consistently having a negative impact. But that doesn't mean you push it away. And this is where it has been abused and abused. The movement away from the toxic masculinity and the imbalance, and basically hijacking what is meant to bring things into balance into another imbalance, right? And we can see that in all manner of social media and political and cultural progressions, quote unquote, right? And speaking as a person who spent a lot of time in these circles, I am grateful that I had a modicum of just being like, do I really trust the establishment now that they're saying the things I want to hear? So, and that was a huge awakening moment, as it was for many people, to have discernment. So I want to check in with the stream and make sure everything is running well. Adam, wow. Oh, buddy, I was going I've really been wanting to text you. I'm going to do it today. I'm glad to see you here. So Adam says, yes, I've been wound so tight. I'm exhausted having to be right, and I'm tired of being angry. Yeah, absolutely. Boy, and it's so wound, and for me, it's so old. Like, it's just so old, and it's so deeply connected to a very specific trauma that has wound the fascia in my body so tight that I'm in so much pain right now because of it, because it's just caused so much physical imbalance. And so I totally feel you, and physically and and it's exhausting, right? It's exhausting to have to always feel like you're in that position. So I feel you, and thank you for sharing that. Unglamorous Virgo to the rescue, Barb says. And to reclaim power individually and collectively, so much cleansing out of ancient anger is happening. Yeah, I'm glad that you see it too and feel it. Thank you for giving voice to that. It's old. It's multiple lifetimes. And the Draco, it's not easy right now. You can feel the remorse. You can feel the masculine that was completely out of balance with the Draco story, right? In terms of, manipulating and controlling and using the sacred fruit as a means to control and go into stay in the darkness, basically. And it is. Virgo is absolutely unglamorous, and that's exactly why I love it, because I don't have any sun, moon, rising, but I got a lot of strong Virgo, a lot, and it's been, and there's so many crossovers with family members and lifetimes in other ways, and the things that I've experienced in terms of my body, the template of past life injury and trauma is so present now, because that's where we're at, right? It's not just this lifetime. It's all getting cleansed away. And we talked about this actually in the last Starseed Fellowship, and when we got on the starship, that was one of the things that came up, and in previous ones too, where the template is really, the energetic template is outside of time and space. So one of the things I'm going to offer here before we get into and sharing the space weather, is that, so they say that it takes about 21 days, right? 3 weeks to set a new habit or to really instill this pattern or template into your behaviors or into your routine or whatever it is. So that's about, once we get to the first, which is on Thursday, then we have about 3 weeks till we get to the time of harvest, right? The September equinox. The sun comes into 0 degrees Libra, where it is truly starting to identify with the collective energy. And we're already feeling it. Mercury is already in Libra, right? The moon is in Libra. So right now and into tomorrow, this is a great time in terms of your own inner landscape, the moon, right? What you are feeling, how you are interpreting that, because the moon is still very, very dark. There's just going to be that tiny sliver of light, while the sun is in early Virgo, and it's still in a square to Mars. It's been ruthless. It's been ruthless, right? Because Mars is just like, I want to be on this side of the thing. Right? And as Adam said, right, just having to be right and wanting to hold your position, because that's where you're able to release your anger, is in a polarity. And I think what's really, really annoying about it is that we have to just go through it, and it's so painful. Like, you have to be it has to be so, you have to be pushed to the wall so much about it that you finally just let it go. And everybody's kind of going through it in different ways. So what I want to offer, and by the end of the week, or by Thursday for sure, I'm going to have like the actual flyer, promotional material. You can get on my mailing list through the description box if you want to make sure that you get that information in terms of this. So what I'm going to do is offer, I'm going to start doing the next 3 weeks of daily Reiki healing attunements. It's something that Reiki masters are able to do. It's a very short process that reinforces energetically, kind of installs a template, healing template to the person receiving. And so as a master, I'll often do these on myself. And I've done these things before, these attunements, these Reiki challenges, right? That's also been something that's been instituted through my Reiki teacher, through Evolve Portland. And I will link information. There will be lots of cross-linking about all of these things, because we've done this before and it's been very powerful. And what I would like to do is not only challenge people who are either attuned to Reiki, if you're a Reiki master and want to participate, but I'm also going to offer the actual healing attunements to anybody as part of my practice, right? Every day for 3 weeks, everybody will receive the attunement, and I'm going to offer it on like a sliding scale, right? Like $50 to $30, and you get the healing attunement every day. And even if you're not attuned to Reiki, you can participate by instilling a practice, a prayer, whatever it is, right? Taking a couple of minutes to just listen to relaxing music, to go outside and put your feet on the ground for 5 minutes, sit under a tree, whatever it is, you give yourself that space and time to really participate with the heal. And it doesn't matter what it is. You don't even have to tell me what it is, right? You just let me know that you want to do it, and your name goes on a list, and it's part of my altar and everything that I do as part of this process. So I think, whatever it is, giving yourself the challenge of creating that space, because that's a message that's come up I'd say the last 2 months, especially since well before the Lionsgate. Now we've gotten through it, and we're getting up to the equinox. And so this is a great time to challenge yourself and to maintain the course, whatever it is, of your own evolution, of your own healing process, even when it feels like you're not getting anywhere. Because this is the Virgo time of year, it seems like, nothing's happening. It's the fruit ripening, right? It's coming to fruition. And when we look at the reading today, we're going to see without that patience, right? And hasty decisions and burning yourself out. Believe me, the sun's doing plenty. You don't have to do anything. You can just let the sun assist all of us in these upgrades, and the resonance of actual light itself, and the plasma coming in through the flares and the coronal mass ejections, and even the disruption in the geomagnetic field, because there's something to even gather from that, even when it's upset and disturbed. it's just like us, right? It gives us opportunities to practice being this toroidal field rather than it being this erratic, like, what is happening? Yeah, and breath work, cannot be overstated how powerful the breath is. So diaphragmatic breathing, it makes a big difference. So what we're going to do here is I want to take a moment to just look real quickly at the space weather, just so that we can give ourselves an opportunity to look at what's actually happening. And for many of you track this, and so this won't be necessarily anything new to you. But for those who are still learning, and I'm always learning all the time, believe me, I pick up little nuggets of information every day that I'm like, oh, I didn't know what that was. Oh, I see how they measure that now and what that actually means. So, take it one step at a time. I'm sharing with you, right, what I'm learning and giving my interpretation of it, just so you know. My interpretation, I'm giving you my version of the story, right? And that's how we all learn the story, is by sharing our story with each other. So the Schumann, first, it blacked out Thursday to Friday. There was a big chunk where it wasn't being measured. Who knows why? Equipment failure, right? So we didn't get to see what was happening, but we knew something big happened, right? Because all these people, including myself. And then it's just been like rough sleep all weekend. And we do see that the Schumann has been, a little bit active, but not much. But here's today, right? Here's today, this morning. It's starting to get louder again. Now, the thing that I think this is interesting here is that, let me find it, is that, well, let's look at these things. This is what I want to look at, actually. Sorry about that. Let me see here. So what we do see all weekend is that if you can kind of see here, these solar flares have been consistently popping off from the sun, and they're getting really close now to X-class level. Even here, the Enlil spiral just showed the most recent, which was just this morning. I think it was like an M8. So it's not really going to come at us, but it's got such a huge halo that we're likely going to get something. We're going to get some CME that's going to hit us, but you can see that it's not facing us, but we are going to get something. It's going to, and there's a coronal hole, and we're going to get solar wind from that as well. So also too, just to show you, right, the solar wind speed is going up. It's going back up again as of today. It's getting this red, when it gets really erratic like this red line up here, or this series of red lines, you know that there's geomagnetic disturbance, because there's solar wind coming from the coronal hole, and there are solar flares that are sending CMEs. One of them was pretty weak. It didn't do much, but you can see that it's starting to kind of push the envelope just a little bit in terms of geomagnetic instability, and that affects the electrical current of the atmosphere, which impacts the electrical current underneath the surface as well, which, by the way, Tesla was able to harness when he put light bulbs in the ground in Colorado Springs and got them to light up. So there's a relationship between the crust, under the crust, and the atmosphere as well. And any of you who are energy sensitive, you know that there is a network of electrical circuitry under the crust of the planet. Like, if you felt it, it's like a mycelial network, or a bunch of, it's like circuitry. But it's natural circuitry right under the crust, right? This is what you can tap into with that Earth Star chakra as well, right? And this is part of helping to maintain our own toroidal field in alignment with the planet. So whenever she has this large swell of amplitude with the Schumann, I mean, something is going on there that is increasing the amplitude. It just got louder for whatever reason. So I find that tapping into that definitely has an impact on us. So I think it's safe to assume that we're probably going to get some solar weather that's going to be very disruptive in the next couple of days. But while the moon is in Libra, this is kind of this time to be like, okay, what does balance feel like within me? How do I feel actually balanced between myself and other without being the standard moon in Libra person? Please don't take offense to this if you're one of these people. Believe me, I know who these people are in my life, so I know, and I love them dearly because they're always really emotionally compensating for everything around them in order to find balance. It really is in a way that is very in service, and with an emotional sensitivity to the imbalance. But what does that usually do? A lot of times that usually you either overcompensate by, getting angry or lashing out at people after it's been bottled up, or you're just completely wishy-washy. So there's a negative and a positive pole to all of these zodiac signs and what they mean. And so while the moon is in Libra, right, you don't want to lose yourself in the feeling of like, oh, this is really unbalanced, but you also don't want to overcompensate by getting way into your own ego and emotional self-preservation that you forget other people exist. The dragon, believe me, there was going to be more than singeing of eyebrows this weekend if I had not really been clear with myself. And so after a good cry and a lot of physical pain in my body, I was like, wow, I am angry, right? I am so angry at certain things. And I really have to be much more meticulous about not letting it settle in the body. And many of us are just, that's this next up level. And as a Draco Starseed, I can tell you that it is on multiple levels right now. And it's all kind of coalescing right here in this very physical experience. And we just have to go through it, right? And with some courage and a sense that we are truly all kind of communing together around this energy, and it's very fire oriented. So anyway, here's our sun. This coronal hole right here is what we're getting solar wind right now. This was this huge M class, almost X class flare from this morning that just popped off, and it's just beautiful arcs. And they're huge, right? They could fit like many Earths just in this little space here, just to give context. Being afraid of this is kind of pointless. I mean, it makes way more sense to be informed and in alignment with what's happening. Because these are forces that are like just so much larger than our physicality, but also very much part of how we're here in the first place. There is a balance, right? This could destroy us, but it doesn't. Does it? Right? And it may, and it has in the past, I'm sure. I mean, that's kind of the idea of these like cyclical magnetic excursions and solar flaring, and the cycle of the sun in itself, right? Sometimes it just it pops off, and it has an impact. Just like you can get really pissed off and pop off and say things that really you can't take back. Or you can be so invested in yourself through your ego because you are deeply entrenched in inner child trauma that has carried you into adulthood, that you don't realize that your masculine's so out of balance that you couldn't actually use it when you needed to, right? I mean, there's so many different ways that the masculine is just crying out for it right now. And it's a difficult way. It's difficult to hold space for that without taking it on. And I think the moon in Libra is going to be like, okay, well, how do I do that? Right? Like really feeling. And so when we look at today's astrology in particular, we'll get some good insight on how to maximize the potential of the astrology chart instead of thinking like you don't have any control over your life. Anybody who really thinks that about astrology doesn't know what they're talking about with astrology, right? They actually don't know the language. So that's a pretty good indicator that, they need to sit down and listen to something rather than getting, caught up in their own lack of knowledge about something, right? Their own ignorance. That's what I meant to say, right? And we're all ignorant about something, lots of things. So perhaps maybe, that's a good thing to remember, that we're all ignorant about something. And the best way to dispel your ignorance is to learn about it. Right? Even if you don't like it. And a lot of people have been very uncomfortable with that. And so they decided not to. We all still have to live with those decisions, though. So let's look at the reading. Boy, oh boy. Where are you? There you are. All right, friends. I'm getting it all queued up. Here we go. Here's our reading for today. So like I said, coming in hot. You got the Three of Wands. You got the Two of Wands. This is Aries, Aries, Aries all day. You got the Alchemy card, the Art, Temperance, number 14, the Sagittarius card, as our outcome or our effect here. And it is, you know, it's not fully upright, but it's not necessarily reversed either. So there's a lot of imbalance in terms of not only our material reality. The Seven of Keys is reversed, right? It's like Pluto in Capricorn, like, okay, I'm just going to shove you off the mountain, or, you know, any number of ways you can interpret this in terms of you're not quite up there yet, or maybe you were and you're like, oh, this sucks, or maybe you keep trying and trying and trying and you can't get up there. And remember where, you know, Pluto is in retrograde in Capricorn, right? About getting to the top. And literally, the Sabian symbol is the pilgrims climbing the mountain to the shrine, right? So there's been some setbacks, right? There's a sense of like, is this going to be paying off? Am I putting in, you know, am I getting a return on my investment? And I assure you, the moon coming into Scorpio is going to be a huge indicator of that. Also, remember here, or maybe this is the first time you're hearing it, our first quarter moon on magical September 3rd, where we had our mystic rectangle, is going to be in Sagittarius that day. So something else to keep in mind as well is that we'll get a really clear, maybe not fully clear, but we will get a very intuitive, sensitive idea of, are we getting the return on our investment? I think that they're deep down, we're really questioning that, and we're really feeling in our physical reality that maybe we're not, or something is not quite right or out of balance. And the King of Forces also in reversal here at the top of our awareness, and this is the fire of Earth, right? Even the capacity within ourselves to really find our naturally based sense of power, creativity, transformation, something's off, right? And without the guidance around this, which is incredible, by the way, once we get into it, when you take these aspects out of it for a minute and you see that as it stands, you know, all the virtue and dominion of this energy is not really going to lead anywhere without being more in balance with what we are really striving for. You know, what is it that we're making an effort and determination, you know, getting to the top of the mountain, right? Our own journey to this upreaching, or, you know, getting to a pinnacle of some sort of goal that we have. You know, sometimes you can have a loss, a disappointment, you lose a job, a relationship, something doesn't, you know, come to fruition in some way. And this can make us feel a little scattered in our energy, right? But this is it's about healing across the board. So just to give a sense here of what everything looks like up close. So the sun in Aries is Three of Wands, the second decan, right? The second 10 degrees. So 11 degrees to 20 degrees Aries is represented by the sun in Aries, this Three of Wands, right? Virtue. You know, there's a sense of the responsibility of what this energy can really represent. Now, who and what is in the second decan of Aries? Well, it's Chiron in its retrograde, right? So when I started putting the cards into this format, you know, I go back to my hard drive because I saved them, and I see the last time these cards came up. Now, if you are following this regularly, you'll know, or maybe suspect, that you haven't seen a lot of these cards lately. And that was the first thing I thought. I was like, wow, I haven't seen these in a while. So as I was pulling them up, like searching for them on my hard drive, it shows you when the last time it was used, or, when the last time it was brought in. They were all in 6 months ago, right? February into March, right? The equinox, the last equinox, the March equinox, all of these cards were coming up between February 2022 into March and April of 2022, okay? So there's this sense here that 6 months ago, we had all of this, piss and vinegar about where we were going, and for good reason, right? The virtue, the responsibility, the idea of where it's all going, a sense of creative transformation that has a real, not even a goal, but just like a sense of real, value, right? And at the heart of the moment now, we find Dominion, right? The Two of Wands. So we kind of have this even more pure, transformational, creative fire energy. The Two of Wands, Dominion, right? So here's our polarization. We already had a sense, right, in the spring with the equinox, early in 2022, of what it, where we could really take this energy. We had a sense of what it can be used for, and even maybe that template was installed in some ways. I would argue that it was. Now this is the energy that's going to eventually move into that trifecta, right? That Three of Wands, the Two of Wands, Dominion, right? We're still in the polarization aspect, but there is a goal, there's a direction, there's a manifestation, there's beginning of transformation. It requires courage, determination, power, and a will to conquer, okay? This is Mars and Aries. The first decan. What's in the first decan? Jupiter. Jupiter is not Mars. Jupiter is the overarching big picture. Jupiter is the whole horizon. Jupiter is understanding, wisdom. Jupiter is good fortune and luck, not because of, luck and good fortune being in alignment with the universal rhythm, okay? Being in alignment with the potential of the cosmos, okay? It is the opposite of Libra. So we're going to have like I said, a lot of oppositions to Jupiter. It's still in its retrograde. We're going to have that beautiful mystic rectangle on the 3rd with Mars and Mercury, Jupiter, and the moon in Sag, right? All air and fire. Be ready. It's going to be that magical moment where you can harness this masculine in such a creative, transformational way, and really just stop holding the anger and give it a direction, give it a power, give it a place to go, give it a place to be offered, right? And not in a way where you're destroying everything around you. That's not our job. That's the job of Source, right? That is the job of Universe. That is the job of God or the divine fractal, right? That is bigger than us. Our job is to be in alignment, to be in balance within our own selves and in our conscious choices, okay? So right here at the heart, we feel the fire. Oh, it's so powerful. Dominion, right? And I mean, look at this. This is like, he's really... you don't want to get stabbed with this, right? This is going to do so much damage if that is what it's used for, okay? There are other things that can be used for and channeled into. And you got these jesters on the top here. Jeez, I mean, this is just this weird, but it's Mars in Aries, right? And there is a will to conquer. Now, like I said, the 7 of Keys, the ascent, right? This is us. Here's the sun shining. We've reached the mountain, reached the summit. We had all of our equipment. We pulled ourselves up there. We trained. Now, when it's reversed like this, I mean, it's maybe we fell off. Maybe there's a sudden loss or departure. Maybe we're just like, these efforts are not paying off. Maybe we are not trying hard enough. Maybe those outcomes are harder to realize. Virgo, there is, Virgo is like, it doesn't matter how great it felt. And to be fair here, Venus is still in Leo, right? And so we are embodying this passion like no other, and without without a place for it to go, or an ability to get it out of us or into the collective form or into a form at all, it has the potential to really just like boomerang back in on us too. And I think that has been a big part of, if you're, everybody's, I know for me personally, like it's coming back into the body, like it doesn't have an outlet. And so, but it's still just as powerful. And Venus often will be experienced as embodied physical things, right? Where's your comfort? And especially in terms of where it's at in your chart too. This doesn't mean that Pluto's in retrograde here. It may be time for a new approach. It may be time to just accept where this is right now and instead of like pushing and pushing and pushing, be like, well, okay, I have a lot to learn from this situation, right? What didn't work, or what hasn't been working? Where do I need to reorient my attention and my efforts? Maybe I need better equipment, better new training. Maybe I just need to take a rest for just a minute. And this is about healing. Maybe we've injured ourselves, right? And we need to give ourselves time to heal if we really want to make it up here, right? Sometimes we have to give ourselves that opportunity, right? You can't just rush through the healing because you're like, oh, I intellectualize what this all is, but your body is still in this density. And coming out of it, it's accelerated now. I think that's been some of the most profoundly difficult experiences, because we don't know what that feels like in this experience. We only know what it feels like as starseeds, because and truly everybody, because we have the resonant at a soul level of being in these other experiences that are out of third density, right? But the transition is something we are uniquely doing. It's pretty cool. And very difficult, right? And it's failed before. I have a sense, well, I think it has failed before. I mean, Atlantis and Lemuria is the perfect example in terms of a story. But I think at a larger galactic level and universal level, I think it's failed too. And so we're like, we are the ground crew on so many levels now. It's just remarkable. So that's at the root energetically. Now, where our attention is truly through our own eyes and in our own experience of being this king of forces, right? Which is hardly a king if you look at him and you're just like, oh, don't judge the contents by the wrapper. You know what I mean? So this is a person who is incredibly in touch with the natural forces, natural energies. Look, I mean, there's a bunny and a wolf. They would not be hanging out together if not for the way that he balances just by his relationship with nature. And he's got the stag there, which is a really very powerful animal as well. You might have a stag or a deer that's like part of your animal totem or anything like that. It's very, very powerful. I mean, you would not want to square off with a large stag. Believe me, you don't, because it'll just run you over. And so, but there is a sense of gentleness and trust here as well. And if you can even see the relationships with animals changing. I've noticed this as well, and maybe you have as well, especially with the intermediary of the human relationship. You can find animals that often in nature or in the wild would be more adversarial, predator-prey, that actually become friends and family members, right? You may have a perfect example is like a bunny and a canine in your home, right? A dog. And that comes from domestication and a long time of establishing relationship. But it seems to be that the human relationship with all of these different animals, for instance, is what can foster a change even in their relationships, which I think is just amazing. And that's a strong Syrian starseed type of energy, right? To be able to talk to the plants and the animals and the elements and notice the subtlety of those types of things and be kind of a custodian of that too. Very strong with the Syrian starseeds to do that. And, Lilith is still moving back and forth between Procyon and Sirius. So, but this in its reversal, I digress. The reversal of the King of Forces is a time of depleted force and energy, inertia, scattered energy, loss of position, or a man with disruptive energy who is out of balance. I mean, this might be something you are paying attention to, either this part of yourself or someone in your life. An energy of hostility and anger, right? Here it is. And it's very manipulative underneath. And so it's really important that we take the time to assess this resonance. And it's a blessing. I know that it sucks with this Seven of Keys. It's incredibly, it feels like a setback. It's distracting to be in chronic pain. It's distracting to feel like your efforts aren't paying off, like whatever it is. It is a huge energy drain. And this is what we're feeling and seeing and experiencing. But let me let's look at the guidance first before we really look at this Temperance card, because this is really coming up to our third quarter moon. And what is a third quarter moon, or a first quarter moon? A quarter moon, but a half moon in terms of what we see, right? And so it seems so appropriate that the card that represents Sagittarius and alchemy is going to be, is right now in this position, as we are going to come to this position literally with the moon in its quarter phase being half full. These things are very important to consider. I can't stress them enough. I have to myself as well. It's been a rough weekend to really come to acceptance of these things. The Chiron energy is so important to understand for all of us, because it's the bridge between this, right? How do we actually get out of this? Not get out of it like bypass. How do we go through it? Chiron is the answer, at least right now. So 7 of Scrolls reversed. So we have intricacies in industry, and in its reversal, I mean, it's kind of speaks for itself in terms of things may not be moving fast enough for you. You may be feeling an urgency that or too attached to the outcome of something, right? Because you want to get it done. Be careful not to act in haste. Mars and Gemini. If you make a decision, there will be its opposition. There will be its diametric opposition. That is what Gemini means. No matter what, you create this branch in everything you do. That doesn't mean that, and how that responds to a multiverse or multiple timelines or whatever is something we can't talk about right now. It has much more to do with your own choices and where that outcome will lead to. Okay? In the one stream that we are going to. So you really want to focus your work on the intricacies and trust that even the smallest effort is going to compound. This is why I want to do, and this is why I was inspired, this card really, and then the rest of the cards, the rattlesnake, the seagull, it's all about healing. This is why I was inspired to do the healing attunements, the challenge, right, the 3-week challenge. And if there was any sign that represented challenge, truly, it's Virgo. All the other things, you're just like, I can face the challenge, right? When you can just give yourself over. Virgo is you do that without losing yourself. This is why it's the realm of mastery, and this is why the Draco are so powerfully dangerous and have caused so much damage. And so to be a Draco Starseed means you have taken a very special mission, okay? Very special mission in order to resolve this karma through this experience, okay? And so just know that you are, in fact, a badass, and you chose, right? You chose to be here to do this. Now, if you push too hard, then nothing's going to come to fruition. This is what this means, the patience, right? And to act in a sense of, look what he's doing. This is a plumb bob. This is a measuring tool, right? Measure twice, cut once, right? My partner is a builder and a incredible master builder. So if anything, learning from that, and he's learned from that, you always measure twice and cut once, right? You don't want to keep fucking it up and wasting your resources and your time, okay? So the tiniest efforts are going to compound, right? And so the Reiki healing attunements doesn't mean you're not participating. You have to participate if you want to get something out of this, right? And Mars and Chiron are going to have a sextile in the not too distant future. And I think that that's something to really focus on in terms of here's our opportunity. Here's a real opportunity to use this energy of Mars and Gemini to heal some very deep wounds of self that Chiron, it's just no longer going to work to bypass it anymore. So just be patient. Here's our rattlesnake. Now, I had a snake encounter. It was a small one. I haven't seen them in many months, right? Not since the beginning of the summer. But we were splitting firewood for the wood stove for the winter, right? We're getting the wood stove we're getting the wood shed filled, and we took a tree down from my sister-in-law's property earlier in the spring, right? It probably was around this time, actually, that all these cards came out. I hadn't even thought about that. And it's been drying in huge pieces in a pile on my parents' property now for like 6 months. And so it's like the perfect, moisture level, which is none, to pick it up and to put it through the log splitter. So we spent like 3 or 4 hours putting all of this huge pile through the splitter, and it felt like that log splitter was going through my brain. That's like massive headache over the weekend, and other people reporting it too, and just there was that anger, just like right there. And so I just went out and did the most like mundane, physical, non-thought provoking thing I could think of, which was, splitting firewood. So, but there was this little garter snake that was living in the pile, and he had to like start scurrying. And at one point he was wedged, the snake was wedged between these two massive pieces because it was terrified. It was just like, I don't know what's happening, and you just like came in and like completely disrupted my home that's been safe for like 6 months. And I was very gentle, and I was just talking to the snake. I was just like, listen, there is no intent here to harm you, but we are gonna dismantle your home, right? That is going to happen. So, this is your time now to get to a new safe place. And then even before we finished working, like the snake had moved out of that, space and moved on, right? Little garter snake. Another side conversation about the serpent and the snake, and of course the Draco energy, right? This card comes out when you have to be reminded that what you're going through is to fulfill your initiation into being a healer. And truly, compassion is the experience of suffering as a natural state of being in this reality, in this density. And not that everybody is bound to suffer, but it's through the suffering that you experience compassion for other people who have suffered. And, it's great when it's easy. The real work and the real healer and the real shaman is going to go into that space of compassion because they've had to address their own suffering, right? Their own healing that has to happen within themselves, forgiving themselves, or forgiving those that need, to release yourself, right? But it's in the suffering, as in your own healing experience, that is going to lead you into this. Now, again, here's that Draco energy as well. If you have a strong Syrian Starseed component to your chart, you're going to find that it's getting brought out too. Especially every time Lilith has passed over the star Sirius. This is a big part of this, right? What you're going through is purpose as a healer. And here we go. Now's the time for deep emotional healing, seagull, right? And the bird is that Libra energy. It's the spiritualized consciousness energy. And the seagull lives very close to communion with the water, the ocean, dips down in order to gather what it needs, but doesn't swim in there. Just like our own consciousness needs to be in touch with this part of ourselves, the unconscious, the deep karmic realm of our own Akash, right? Our own Akashic record. Being close to it, being able to go into it without being drowned by it, right? And Neptune in its retrograde, I know that it is, it is willful ignorance right now, but this is such a powerful placement for it, of real spiritual cathartic purification, at the institutional and truly at the full consciousness level. And so that's the spirit, that's the karma, that is the astral realms, that is multiple lives, that is all of us together, right? And what it creates in terms of an experience, right? That's the Pisces energy. We're really now going through it. And of course, this is all opposite Virgo, right? And so, of course, we're going to start getting into more oppositions to Neptune with the sun and Venus eventually as well. The moon just had that opposition. So, what is it going to take in order to not get, destroyed by the deluge. Well, you have to have a consciousness that's kind of like a bird, right? And so that Libra energy, especially late Libra, as we get close to Arcturus, really represents this a lot. So time for deep and emotional healing. You have to use your consciousness to dip into these places, but you don't want to be just, consumed by it either. That doesn't work. It's not going to work that way. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, here's our two worlds, right? And the two world split is truly within us. Like, if we haven't figured that out by now, we will. It's not a two world split of, splitting off into two earths, right? It's within us. That's the two world split between our spiritualized consciousness and our material existence. Here comes Chiron again as the bridge, right? And so the two worlds, this is about the conflict between the outer world and how our spirit directs you. This is about experiencing the polarity between a fully self-realized spiritual experience and personal material, success and gain and comfortability. The polarity will continue until we learn integration, right? And so it is not our destiny for this to split. But Mars will be acting on that, okay? If you believe that that's what's happening, then that's where you're going to put that energy, is into, well, you know what? It doesn't matter. We're just going to go our separate ways. I can't integrate this, okay? You will. I mean, and I'm not telling you that because, that is just where it's going. So healing this, integrating this within ourselves is where the healing is going to happen, right? Perhaps there was the suffering you experienced as a result of the unbalanced masculine, whatever it is in your life, whatever it is, did give you your superpower of Chiron as well. So understanding Chiron in your chart, in the houses and the signs, is going to be imperative. So you may want to think about subscribing to the Catalyst Classroom. It's only $5 a month, and you're getting content every single week. You get bi-weekly Zoom calls on the Starship, and that's linked in the description box below, because we're going to go deep into Chiron this week, and we're also going to be looking at the Starseed activations of Chiron, which are primarily Tau Ceti and Andromeda, through its retrograde period, and then through its post-retrograde shadow and beyond, right? We'll continue to activate Andromeda Starseed positions all the way through where the North Node is right now, right? Halfway between Taurus. So it's very exciting. And these are these fourth dimensional coordinates that astrology allows for. So this is very powerful reading for all of us. And to give you some confirmation and some validation, and also to know that we are all in this together, and for us to kind of commune around this central point of like this cauldron almost, right, with the art of alchemy. It is the catalyzing reaction of fire and heat that's created by the friction of polarity that allows us to create something new. I mean, there are many ways to consider this, and the most fundamental is the reproductive process and how that happens, right? That is literally two opposing energies coming together, and in the friction, literally, you create the conditions for a new life to be created, okay? So art, creating a life, whatever, it's all the same thing. And this is what we're here to do. We're not here to bounce off of each other and to live in this false, dichotomy. Although we've been here for so long that most people don't even realize it, right? And so this is about the matrix as the opportunity to be like, oh, I see. I mean, we're just recreating the same conditions over and over, and all you have to do is just wake up and be like, oh, I'm in charge here. And then all of a sudden it changes. It changes overnight. It really does. It's just, if we don't experience it down to the level of the physical comfort level, we may not necessarily do the hard work that's necessary to create, to truly transmute. And the Draco, the thing that's so simultaneously shitty and great about being a Draco Starseed is that capacity is there. You don't have to learn, there's not these eons of time or initiative processes or anything. It's right there in the soul frequency. So knowing where the Draco Starseed marking is in your chart, how it relates to everything else, all these things that you get from a reading from me, and the beginner Starseed package is a great way to get like all of this downloaded in one fell swoop, and you get like basically bonus time, one-on-one bonus time to like dig in on Zoom with me. So that is one way to really get into this. But the capacity for this is so innately woven into the soul of the Draco Starseed in particular that you don't have to try. It's just recognizing where the polarity is within you and then knowing that that's your power, right? It's just not... It is so painful and difficult and dense and frustrating in this experience of third density. And it's like, we're almost there. We're so close to like finally shooting through the wormhole, is, so to speak. And I don't know when that's going to happen. I can only tell you what the astrology presents as opportunities. I think the Mystic Rectangle is going to be like that moment where we create that vortex for ourselves, so that when the larger energy pushes us through, I mean, we do have our own vortex or toroidal field that we are able to maintain ourselves as we push through that wormhole, just like in Contact, right? When the character Ellie is in the sphere, the egg, right, and she goes through the wormhole, everything. That was her toroidal field, right? That was the way that they conceptualizes the type of technology. We don't need technology to do it. We actually can do it by way of our consciousness, which is why we're so goddamn awesome, right? And when we realize that, then nothing can really stop us from, basically taking us back to our divine blueprint. So, and getting well on our way, right? We still have lots of stages to go, but let's get on with it already. And that's okay to feel that way. But know that what you're getting on with is not some sort of ego satisfying, we won, right? That's not what it is. It is creativity, transmutation. It is soul evolution, right? At a macro level. And for the rest of the galaxy as well. It's not just us. So, I just want to look at the chart real quick here before we wrap this up, because I already went over a lot of the astrology for this week on the report on Friday, but it's really important to just kind of give ourselves this chance to be like, okay, this is our sun. This is our chart. All right. And just see how the moon is in Libra. So even as of 10 a.m. this morning, Eastern time, the moon was coming into conjunction with Mercury. And that is where we can allow our emotional landscape to be influenced by at least this conceptualization of like communing around this central fire. Like, we're going into uncharted territory, unbeaten paths. And before we do that, we're kind of all can be together around the, this sense of hope and where it can lead to, right? And so this is a great way to start this day, as far as I'm concerned. You can see that Mars is still in a square with the sun, and this has just been ruthless, right? Because Mars wants to act on that dialectic. Ooh, it's 11:11. And the sun in Virgo is like, well, tough shit. We are identified in our pure expression with making it blend, right? We are identified with the ripening. We are patient and resolute for what's to come as a result of the integration and not getting caught in acting exclusively on the polarization in itself, in ideas, okay? This is, if they can't pull off civil unrest during this time, we are golden. That's how I feel about it. There will be other challenges, I assure you, but I feel like that if we can get through Mars in Gemini without going to, some sort of civil unrest or really battling each other and putting that energy towards the real goal here, I think that, it's all system, full speed ahead at that point. So And like I said, the sun is conjunct Alpha Draconis right now today, all through tomorrow. It'll be conjunct into, I would say, even into Wednesday. It's going to be pretty active, okay? So just know that it's not inherently evil, okay? The dragon energy is not inherently evil. The serpent is not inherently evil, okay? It is about what we do with that energy that makes all the difference, right? And that energy is incredibly wise and potent and very dangerous if used through the vessel of a Darth Vader, right? I mean, just watch Star Wars. You'll see it all laid out in front of you in terms of this is what happens when there's imbalance on both sides, right? That's a really clear lesson about Star Wars, is that the Jedi got too full of themselves, because they didn't know, they thought that the light had won, and that was all it was going to take, and the Force literally created the Skywalkers so that they would bring balance back, which is not the same as the light only being the only thing. Now, I can't speak to what that experience is in other densities of experience, of what light is, what the boundaries are, how we experience it, like what's polarity like in those. I can only speak to fifth density, which I know from very, flashes of this experience that it's instantaneous. Like polarity is the energy, right? So you never really in your anger, right? If you feel it, it's immediately brought into manifestation. Now that goes both ways too, right? And this is what happened to the Draco, right? They're operating at a 6th density level. That is pretty masterful, I would say, and they know how to use that energy. But it is it is gone dark, very, very dark. And there's some things you can't come back from. You can only surrender to it and start over, or find that redemption. So that story is woven into the human experience from day one, right? The archetype, the hero's journey, all of those things are built in. So it has been ruthless, right? The sun in Virgo has been slow your roll, homie. You got some work to do over here, and that's where the energy can be directed. But we had to feel that square first, really, especially with the new moon in Virgo itself. So as the moon moves through Libra today, it's really the primary things it's going to be doing. Like I said, conjunct Mercury, will be in a trine to Mars, right? This is about, again, watching your ideals take a concrete form in your mind's eye. This is the best, you have to really know and feel what that inner vision is. And what else I think will happen is that Mars will be so ambitious in this moment, providing that level. It's like drilling for oil, right? Like wanting to get at what is under the surface, where the power is, where the energy is, like, drilling down in order to bring it back up. Getting a real strong feel, right? An intuitive hit maybe on what is starting to materialize or take form based on that outward energy. And I think this is a good time to be like, what is that? What kind of concrete form is starting to come forward in my feels, right? Because a trine doesn't mean it's good. A trine just means that it is a balanced foundational energy. 2 air signs holding each other in a very secure angle, right? 120-degree angle. This is the 12, right? This is the 3 to the 4. This is, 3, 6, 9, 12, right? And so the 120-degree angle is part of that 3, 6, 9 pattern. And it's very stable. But it doesn't mean that it's good. It just means that it's stable. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that it'll be, where is that energy going? And where is it being directed to? Because you'll feel in that moment what it is. Now, right after that is when the moon comes into an opposition with Jupiter. So right after that, the tension immediately happens. So here's the trine, and then we come into the opposition to Jupiter. Yes, let me show it to you. if you want to see it. I feel like seeing some people are very visual, especially if you're into astrology and reading charts, because it's the visual that you get that sense of like, oh, there's that opposition. So the moon opposite Jupiter. Now this is where Mercury is going to be opposite Jupiter on September 2nd into the 3rd with that mystic rectangle that we looked at. So what is, this is a sense of there is that place to return to within, right? There is that hope, even within the abandoned great dream, okay? And it does feel to me all of this energy is giving us plenty of opportunity to not let go of what we're all here to do when something pretty drastic presents itself into our awareness that maybe will feel scattered or will feel like a loss. Or it could be something as simple as, who am I? Where does my fire come from if I am not triggered by this anger? Whatever it is, right? And it could be something so that it could be just one of those moments where the shift, the perspective really shifts. But I think with the Virgo energy, it is really embodied and is very much in the material, and the intensity of it is being embodied with Venus and Leo still. So I think that it's just going to, again, still be a very difficult transition. But even if there is this sense of like, oh, this is not going where I wanted it to go, or something is off, or something is not going to come to fruition, or you think it's not going to come to fruition, there is a presence that remains at the center, which is that fire that we're all communing around right now. And it's just like, what is it, what we can really do with this energy, right? Rather than get caught up in the battle and really wasting it. And not letting it go either, right? This is the thing about the feminine that has been so damaging too, is that the feminine is just like, okay, I'll just do both roles. And it's like, no, that's not appropriate and it's not okay, right? That is not balance. That's what happened in Star Wars. The Jedi are like, oh, we'll just take over all of the Force. No. And the feminine is suffering because the masculine needs to be healed. So how do we hold space for the masculine within ourselves and in the people in our lives without, betraying ourselves, and without the feminine taking it on and making us sick, giving us pain, right? Giving us a sense of taking away our own agency in some ways. How do we do that? It's different for all of us, okay? But we're going to get plenty of opportunities to practice, and we are right now. So this moon in Libra is going to be a big indicator of how September and October is going to be in terms of outward experience, right? Just this moon in Libra, we could feel the feels around it. So and then you see here that here's Lilith coming into conjunction now with Procyon, again, in a trine with Neptune, right? So perhaps there all the Procyon stuff, right? There's many of us have the Procyon starseed. This is where Pluto is, right? Pluto opposite Procyon. And so perhaps it seems all is lost. Perhaps it seems like we are trapped. Perhaps it seems like that what we're doing is not working. Maybe we will be trapped in here forever. Maybe we will be enslaved forever, right? Maybe we think that is going to happen again, and so we still are living there. Black Moon Lilith, Procyon, right? A conjunct Procyon. Perhaps many of us don't even realize that we're still living in that reality and not utilizing that experience as a means to have a different experience here consciously. And Neptune in a trine to Lilith, I think, is incredibly cathartic and powerful, and we don't have to do anything. We just have to create the space for this to flow through us, right? And it may be so strong that we're like, oh my God, right? You're holding on to like this branch for dear life. It might be like that, right? But I think that there is something profound about this trine here that is helping us to get realistic about how to find that integration, how to find that trifecta, right? How to find the trilogy of our mental, emotional, and spiritual parts of ourselves instead of compartmentalizing it. Because I think many of us have been doing that for a long time, and I can speak personally to that, and we have to stop now, right? It's over. In terms of being able to hold that, right? It's no longer necessary, and it's no longer a means of survival, right? Because that's where it's really been, I think, with Chiron. It's been for a means of survival, and within the retrograde right now, we can let it go. We can start to really let it go, but geez, it's hard. And so if you've ever worked in any modality in terms of body and trauma, in any way, right? You're a healthcare provider, you do energy work, any kind of body work, or counseling, anything like that, or been on the other side of it as well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That it is stored in the body because the energy template is the one that is communicating to your cells and your DNA and transcribing these things. So it's really important that we, not ignore it. Not ignore it, but also not think that, we can't experience joy or passion or a sense of real meaning to all of this either. So I know it's a very heavy and intense transmission today. So I'm popping over to the chat real quick. Megan, oh yeah, you made it. Happy Monday. VZ's like, I'm late, but I made it. I'm so glad to see all of you guys. And there's Cassandra, Light on Change, and made it too. Thank you guys. I know that, man, your participation is so appreciated, and I value it so much. So one thing that I'm going to post is VZ posted an article to our Starship, and I'm gonna and feel free, please, to post it elsewhere if you want. I'm gonna read it and post it on social media, just about the ways to increase endogenous DMT and different types of practices that will help with that. And so fasting, breath work, and I would say the Reiki is going to be part of that as well, the Reiki healing attunement. So that's something to keep in mind too. And like I said, it's going to be on a sliding scale. I want it to be available to as many people as possible, and it'll be kind of a group thing in terms of me providing the attunement. So keep an eye out for that as well. But my friends, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I can feel it though. We can all feel it. And it's very tempting to kind of like buckle down and just kind of put your head in the sand maybe, or to get really freaked out. And it's really important that we keep our heads about us. And like I said, for the Virgos with their new moon forecast, I mean, this is your month, Virgo, to be kind of like the master for all of us, right? To really be, especially if you have a sun in Virgo, my gosh, and any of it really, because the sun is in Virgo, to really shine in that patience, that resoluteness, this mastery of your own energy in just who you are, because it's going to make a big impact on the people in your life, because I think a lot of us really are struggling right now, and learning how to be in that suffering and be in our joy at the same time, and how to use our anger, don't push it away, but not have it be destructive either. That's one, especially with Mars and Gemini, like I've said like countless times, it's really important that we're taking it kind of seriously and doing what we can. So my friends, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Thank you for being on the chat. Thank you for those who got on and boarded the Starship either in real time or you've caught the replay. It was a really powerful conversation. I appreciate that space so very much. Catalyst Classroom information, that's in the description box. The Starseed Synastry, by the way, that's something I wanted to bring up real quick before we move on. The Starseed Synastry readings, I'm still offering them. They are on my website. You can book directly. I'm offering them at a sale. And a lot of the people I've done these Synastry readings for recently, this particular, it's a brand new service that I'm offering. They've all had Draco somewhere. The Synastry had Draco somewhere, either both, or one was really heavy Draco and the other was like helping to manage or mitigate that in their relationship. So you might want to consider this if you are interested to see how those starseed relationships can really be helping you right now. $88 for the recorded reading. It's really helpful to get at least the consent of the other person. I really can't read fully unless they know it's happening. They don't have to read it or listen if they're not interested, but just having them know that you're doing it and being like, okay, goes a long way. Otherwise, it's very hard for me to get intuitive reads on their charts, which is where a lot of, the richness of my work comes from, the ability to intuitively read it. And so that's just something to consider. So go to the website. It's in the linked in the description box below, and you can book right from the website. Of course, the lunar transit forecast still open for Virgos and Pisces. We just had the new moon, so we still have this whole lunar cycle to go through. And so that is also available to book through the website on catalystenergies.net. Let me find the other, because I like the glyphs. There we go. Virgo and Pisces. So this is the sale rate. Normally it's $77 for the 60-minute reading, and I don't offer a 30-minute reading normally for the lunar transit. It's just too much to put into that snapshot. But for the Virgo Pisces, it's really important to get that sense of like, okay, what's going on for me this month? So that's available as well. And yeah, the Catalyst Classroom will be doing that this week. So just, you can get on my mailing list, and you get about an email every 10 days, and it's all just what the current offerings are, and a little bit of a newsletter type of energy, my personal writings about what's going on, and then the offerings that are relevant to that time frame. So you can find your way to that through the website as well. So thank you, my friends, so much. I truly appreciate each and every one of you so very much. I will see you on Friday for the September 3rd report, the first quarter moon report, the astrology report, and in the meantime, I'll catch you on Telegram if you're on there. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the Catalyst Classroom this week as we talk about Chiron. Take care, everyone. Love you all. Take care of each other as well. See you next time. Bye.